This video has been a long time coming. We've seen a lot of red flags cropping up over the years that show that the UK is changing for the worst. So I think it's about time we started addressing the absolute fucking state of the UK. We can start looking at a few minor things, like knife crime laws. The UK does have some strict knife crime laws. Scotland has some extremely strict knife crime laws, where even if you are hiking, fishing, hunting or camping, something that would be a very valid reason to have a knife on you, you can actually be arrested and charged for that. A man right now is actually currently facing 4 years in prison for carrying a potato peeler. The police have become so overzealous in this that they boast about seizing literal butter knives and also bike wheels for some reason. I actually have a friend who was arrested and charged with possession of a knife because he had a knife on him while he was camping in the middle of the woods, and he now has a nice criminal record because of that. I think the context as to why you have a knife on you should be taken into consideration. For example, if you're hiking, fishing, hunting, etc., then I think that's a perfectly valid reason for you to have a knife on you. However, if you're hanging around on a street corner with a bunch of your friends in an area that's known for gang violence and you all have knives in your pockets, well, that's a very different story. But even with the far overreach of knife crime laws, which most of the time punish innocent people that had no violent intent whatsoever, there has still been a massive surge in the frequency and severity of knife crime, especially in London, where you're getting youths walking around the streets, sometimes in just broad daylight, attacking each other with knives and machetes. But what could have actually caused the massive increase in knife crime, and why aren't the police taking more preventative measures to actually stop it? Maybe it's because Sadiq Khan said he was going to do everything in his power to cut random stop and searches, and the result of that was London's murder rate surpassing New York's murder rate. It in fact got so bad that Sadiq Khan actually had to completely U-turn on this decision, and instead he's now vowed to increase stop and searches. The problem is the mentality of it being easy to get away with carrying a knife has already been established among the youth, and it's probably going to take a good few years for that mentality to go away. Another huge issue that the country faces is female genital mutilation, where even 30 years after the practice was made illegal, not a single conviction was made, and we're only just starting to see convictions now at an extremely low rate, despite there being thousands and thousands of reported cases. I mean, in 2017 alone, there was over 1,700 reported cases where female genital mutilation had been identified, and there was only a really small handful of cases that actually went to court. In fact, despite there being a massive number of reports in 2017 alone, 2017 may have actually been the first year where someone was actually prosecuted under the law. Grooming gangs are another problem that the country's facing. Due to the absolute failure of the Rotherham investigation and several others, the public outcry got so bad that the police actually seem to be getting their act together and actually investigating these things. Prosecutions are happening, people are being arrested, the police are actually getting off their arse, so that's actually a good thing that they're starting to take it a lot more seriously. A few thousand raped children a bit too late, but it's better than nothing. If the police need more resources for this, then I'm more than happy for my tax money being used to set up a special unit whose sole purpose is to investigate and prosecute grooming gangs. Fuck, I'll pay more tax if that's where the money's going. Another issue is the rise in far-left extremism, primarily Antifa. They mask up, come to our events, threaten us, assault us, threaten venues to get them to deplatform us, and can even stage premeditated and pre-planned attacks on people that they have deemed to be fascists, all with no further action or investigation from the police at all. But when it came to the violence at the Free Tommy event, which again I don't condone, the police used CCTV, surveillance and even analysing the social media accounts of everyone that was involved, and the instant they identified anyone as having committed a crime that day, they swooped in and grabbed them. It was done with such precision, such finesse, they invested so much resources in it, and they just arrested people en masse. It was probably some of the best work from the police that you've ever seen in rounding up these violent people. Have you ever seen the police do that to Antifa? Because I haven't. It's almost like there's a little bit of selective prosecution going on here. The funny thing is, Antifa do get away with a hell of a lot. They get away with a hell of a lot. But take any group that's even just slightly right of centre and beyond, any group that is on that hemisphere, just get them to act like Antifa. Even just for a day. You know, mask up, threaten events, you know, peaceful protests and all that type of stuff, and just watch how fucking fast and hard the police act to nuke that shit from orbit. It's just very interesting how easily the police were able to track down and catch everyone who was violent at the Free Tommy event, but when it comes to Antifa, who do worse things and with a lot more frequency, the police just can't seem to find them at all. I mean, if Paul can find and identify Antifa members using nothing but Google and autism, then how come the police, with their vast surveillance network and professionals who are trained specifically in tracking down suspects, they just can't seem to find Antifa at all? Really, it really makes you think, doesn't it? But for some reason the police aren't focused on these. They've driven their time and resources in a completely different direction to focus on something else. But what could possibly be worse than physical attacks, mutilation, extremism, and rape of children? What could possibly be so bad that the police would ignore these things and focus elsewhere? Words. Those pesky, sneaky words that can make you feel sad, offended, or even convince you to change your way of thinking to a way of thinking that the government doesn't like. Because words can mean violence. Which is true. I remember this one time, years ago, I was in a bar, and some guy was giving me the glare. So I walked up to that motherfucker, and I slit his throat with an adjective. We've had the war on drugs. We've had the war on terror. Now let's see how much time and resources the police are investing into the war on words. Sadiq Khan decided to ignore all the machete, knife and acid attacks that were happening on the streets of London, but decided instead to protect people from mean words, and he established an online hate crime unit, which is set to cost millions and millions to the taxpayer. The police also like to remind everyone that Big Brother is watching by sending out these really foreboding tweets that remind everyone that if you say any wrong-think opinion out loud, you're off to the gulag. This new wave of surveillance has gotten so bad that in 2016 alone, over 3,300 people were brought in for police questioning over something that they said online. Just imagine the amount of police time and resources that must go in to interviewing, detaining and questioning 3,300 people. Also, do grooming gangs piss you off? Do you hate them? Do you think they're absolutely disgusting? Well, you better keep that to yourself, because the police are actually arresting people for tweeting mean things out about grooming gangs. We currently right now have people in jail for tweets, but for some reason our media has the cheek to fucking bitch about Erdogan. We're also going to give higher sentences to people that view extremist content online, and when they say extremist content, they mean things like jihadi extremism or right-wing extremism, which is absolutely fine, but it doesn't mention anything at all about left-wing extremist content. It's funny that, isn't it? So the police have invested so much time, so much taxpayer money, and so much resources into policing what people say, which ultimately by proxy leads to policing what people think. But why is it the police are now so focused on this war on words? It seems to me personally like a massive virtue signal. They want to prove that Britain is a diverse, accepting and tolerant place, while right now the police are just pushing a message that they do not accept diversity of opinion. They refuse to accept the right of other people to hold certain opinions, and they seem to be completely intolerant of opposing views that do not fit with the status quo. So why have the police focused mostly on this instead of fighting actual serious crimes? It's because we all know the power of a certain accusation that the far left like to use when they know they're about to lose an argument. It's almost like it's a Pavlovian response from them at this point. Whenever they know they're about to lose an argument and they want to shut down all discourse and they don't want to listen to a single word that you have to say and they want to make sure other people don't listen to you either, They'll just turn around and call you a racist. The far left have used this method so much, and they've made sure that they've created a culture where racists are dehumanised so much that their opinions are irrelevant. Essentially, they don't have rights, and any treatment that you give them or anything that you do to them physically or verbally is completely justified, which is why people are so terrified of being labelled as a racist, and they will do anything they can to prevent that. And the police have even went down this path themselves. They will not investigate forced marriage because they're afraid of being called racist. They will not investigate female genital mutilation because they're afraid of being called racist. They will not do random stop and searches because they're afraid of being called racist. They will not investigate fucking grooming gangs because they are afraid of being called racist. Just like the townsfolk of Salem would completely change their behaviour to avoid anyone accusing them of being a witch, in the current day, everyone, including the police, will do the exact same thing to avoid being called a racist. This culture that the far left have created is actually preventing the police from doing their job. People are actually being hurt because of this. And do you want to know the funny thing about this? The far left think that by them doing this, they're protecting minorities, but see if you remove grooming gangs from the situation, see when it comes to female genital mutilation, forced marriage, and also knife crime, do you want to know who the vast majority of victims are? Migrants, non-whites, refugees, Muslims, basically people that are non-native to Britain. You know, the very people that you're supposed to be trying to protect. You have actually created a culture where police will mostly ignore these crimes and not properly investigate them. So congratulations, you have created a culture that is actually bringing physical harm and suffering to the very people that you are trying to protect. But hey, at least they won't have to listen to mean words. Now, British police, I completely understand your fear. But take it from someone who gets called a Nazi, white supremacist, racist bigot on a daily basis. You learn to live with it. Nothing really changed in my personal life because my family and my friends and everyone that actually knows me in the real world knows that I'm none of these things, so nothing changed in that regard at all. Yeah, sure, there might be a point where I'll be out in public one day and I'll get punched because someone read about me in The Guardian, or Antifa might track down where I live and attack me or my girlfriend because Antifa does like attacking women. But you're the police, so you don't need to worry about that. America's police get called racist all the time, and they're doing a great job. Mostly. Being falsely labelled as a racist and a Nazi by the media is actually quite handy. It helps you separate people that you can actually have a intelligent conversation with from the people who get all of their information from The Guardian. It really helps you separate the wheat from the chaff, or in this case, the adults from the toddlers. My politics are out there for the world to see. Rational people who actually research me and actually look into the things I say realise that I am actually none of these things. Even rational people who fucking hate me never brand me any of these terms because they see that I just don't fit the bill. Of course, there are still spergs out there who'll call me racist, Nazi, alt-right, and all of these other terms, even though I don't actually treat people differently based on race, and I have never at any point in my life advocated for an ethno-state. But in the same breath, I'm not going to waste my time explaining to these people why I'm none of these things because they can't actually go out and do the research themselves. So, to those people that still think I'm alt-right, still think I'm a Nazi, still think I'm a racist, I'm not going to waste any more time on you. And the reason for that is, just because your mother drank very heavily while she was pregnant with you is not my fucking problem. To get back on point with the video, ultimately things in the UK need to change, and the people that are in power right now are not going to bring us the change that we actually want. What we need is freedom of speech, a rule of law that is actually applied completely fucking equally, and an absolute respect for individual rights. And see, when it comes to these things that the majority of people actually want and would actually benefit every single person in this country, the Tories don't give a shit, Labour doesn't give a shit, the SNP doesn't give a shit, and I could probably count on two hands how many people in Parliament right now actually give a shit about these things. Things need to change. I know this was a serious video and there wasn't really any jokes. I'm just really annoyed that in this case, the punchline is my fucking country.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe.